Hey guys, how's it going? So we're here for a little late night flow builder session, and in this video we are going to go over how to launch a flow from a quick action. So we're going to tie a screen flow to a button in Salesforce. We're going to press the button and the flow is going to do some logic. So that's the requirement. The key point here is that we need to pass in the record ID to the flow when we are doing this. The benefit is that it is a really easy user experience, so it's a great way to make flows accessible and to bring powerful flow functionality to the tips or fingertips of users in Salesforce. And in this specific use case, we are going to quickly create a new contact record for an existing account. So I'm going to toggle over to Salesforce here, and we'll get started by going to the setup menu, and we're going to build a new flow. Let's type in flows here. Oops. And so an important thing to know as I press the new flow button is that launching a flow with a quick action in Salesforce, you have to have a screen flow. So screen flow is required, and that is to tie the action with the screen flow. That way the user can see something. There are other ways to launch like a record triggered flow, but that often requires Apex. So just for the basic connecting a flow to a button, you're going to need to use a screen flow. So that's what I selected, and we're here on the Flow Builder canvas. I'm going to choose the freeform layout. And before I do anything else, when we are triggering a flow from a button, we need to define a variable. So I'm going to take care of that first, just to mark it off the checklist. So I'm going to press the manager here. I'm going to select new resource, and I'll select variable. And it's very important to name this variable record ID. So whenever you create a resource variable in a screen flow and you call it record ID, if you launch that flow from an object, Salesforce will automatically take the record ID and pass it into the flow. So it's really handy, but you have to call it record ID. I think it's case insensitive, so I think you can kind of do any case, like uppercase, lowercase, that you want. But I tend to do lowercase r and then capital I. And it works, so I just do that out of a superstitious habit now. At any rate, we will have our record ID text, and then it's also very important to mark it as available for input. So there's a checkbox at the bottom here called available for input, and you want to make sure that that is checked. Otherwise, Salesforce cannot populate the value of the record ID variable with a record. So that's really the most important part once you get the variable there. Let's return to our use case, and we want to have a button on an account that can quickly create contacts for that account. So we've created our record ID, and so what we could do now is just show a screen. And I typically remove the headers from my screen. I call my screens very basic, screen 1, API name. I also take out the pause elements for most of my screens. It's not often that I want users to pause and come back later, but sometimes they will. In this case, I don't. I'm going to keep it really simple, and I think for a contact, really, the main thing that we need would be a name. So I'm just going to drag a name element to the screen, and I'll just call it contact name. And the first name and last name fields are already kind of populated there for input. And we don't need any default values there, so I think that's fine. If I recall correctly, contact has a requirement for last name only, so let's see if we can make this required up here. Where is the requirement? So that's interesting. I'm not really seeing a required field here. I don't think it exists for this component. In that case, just to make the user experience easier, and so whoever is using the flow doesn't forget, I'm just going to do a text input element, and we'll just do first name as the label, and then we can do last name. It will look the same, but at least here we can require these fields such that a user can't proceed without actually filling in the information. I'm also going to add a section element here and I will make it a 2-column section, and then I can do first and last name like this and just make it look really clean. I think that looks good enough, so I'll just press done. I will connect our screen flow start to our first screen, and I think we've captured the required information. So now I'll drag a create records element to the canvas, and this will be our create contact element. We're just going to make one record, and we are going to use separate resources and literal values. Our object will be the contact object. We need to set the account ID for the contact, and this is where that record ID comes in handy. So when we launch this flow from the account, Salesforce is going to populate the record ID, and then we can reference that record ID in the flow. So we could look up the account, we could look up opportunities related to the account, we can create contacts related to the account. So that's what we're going to use it for here. Our only other two fields that we need to map are the first name and the last name. So I'll map those here, and I'm just going to tie these directly to the values of our screen component. Press done. I'll connect the screen to the create contact, press save. I'll call this screen contact maker. Press save. I'm going to do a quick debug just to make sure that it does in fact work. I think to do that I will need an account ID. So I'm going to jump over, grab the United Oil and Gas Corp account ID out of the URL. Now I'm going to press a debug on the flow. And here you see we have to enter the record ID, and I'm going to paste the value that I copied from the URL corresponding with the United Oil and Gas Corp account. I'm going to press run. First name I'll just do Bob. Last name I'll do Apples, is my favorite go-to test data. I'm going to press next, and I would hope it worked. So it says all done. If we look on the right hand side, we see our create records ran, and it seems like everything was great. So let's go back to the United Oil and Gas Corp account. There's 4 contacts currently. If I press view all, there should be a 5th for Bob Apples, and he's right there at the top, so that's working perfectly. So the flow works. Let's activate it. And our final step will be to go to the account object and put the quick action on the layout. So to do this, I'm going to navigate back to the account. I'm going to click on the little gear icon and press edit object. It's my preferred way of getting to the configuration section for different objects. Here we can just select buttons, links, and actions. So I'll press that, and we can create a new action here. So in our first selection for the action type, we will move down and select flow. And you can see that there aren't many active flows that are screens in the org, but the contact maker one kind of auto-populated. So if yours did not auto-populate, go pick the flow that you just made, but then you can label it anything you like, so I'll just call it make new contact. Actually, the company I work for now has a really cool convention where they just put a plus sign there, and then they use that to say like new or create. So instead of make new, which is 2 words, they just have the plus sign. So I'm going to use that here because I really like that. At any rate, I have all the required fields filled in. So now I'll press save. And I'm going to use the navigation over here to just click on account. That'll take me back to the configuration, and I just need to select page layouts and then go to the account layout that my profile uses. Whoops, clicked the wrong button there. So I'm going to click open the account layout. This will open up, and then in the mobile and lightning actions here, my flow, which has plus contact, is available. This action, I can drag it down to the lightning actions and put it at the top of the list. I can quick save that or save it, doesn't make a difference. I like to quick save unless in case I need to come back and make some changes to the layout. But now, if I refresh here, we will see that our flow, or our quick action, has a plus contact option here. Interestingly, I'm just noticing now that there's a new contact button. Seems like it does almost the exact same thing that our flow does, and it even has email and phone. So that's pretty useful. The contact flow runs, it only has 2 fields, but I guess we've made the point, right? Is we can build a screen flow. We have to pass in the record ID, which is very important. But once we do pass that record ID in, we can use that with a quick action. So our screen flow can pass in the record ID, can create a record, can update the database, can do different things. And just to confirm that, I'm going to make a second record here called Tina Apples. And we'll just see in real time that Salesforce passes in the account ID record here to the flow, which is then able to make an update by creating a new record in the database. Hey guys, hope you found that helpful. Let me know in the comments what other flow videos you'd like to see, and make sure to like and subscribe because it really helps out the channel. If you're interested in learning more about Salesforce flows, make sure to check out my course on Udemy. There's a link in the description. It has over 8 hours of in-depth Salesforce Flow tutorials designed to turn you into a Flow ninja. With that said, have a great day.